Hi everyone, I'm Sandra Ingerman and welcome to the Shaman's Cave. And I have to say, I am so excited right at this moment because as I am talking to Renee, it is snowing outside here in Santa Fe. We're in a terrible drought and in terrible fire drain danger, so we're celebrating moisture today.
I love that. We've had a little bit of rain in the desert too. And I'm Renee Baribeau, the practical shaman, and we're really excited to be here. And it's cold in the desert. I have a jacket on, and it's March. It feels more like January in the desert, and like that. There's still snow up on the mountain. If I could find time to go skiing one more time.
Yeah, I hope you do. I really hope you do. It's really great to be out right now. So, we have a very interesting topic that kind of goes, I think it goes along with a little bit of something that I talked about last week about people, or our last show about people getting a lot of healing from being in nature. And in today's topic, it's very dear to my heart. So I might be stuttering a bit as I talk about it because I'm just really passionate about it, and I don't have all the words yet that go along with it. But it's what I'm looking at in my life, what others are looking at in their life, and something that we'll be suggesting to you to look in your life. I there's a couple of and basically the topic is on horizontal growing versus vertical growing. And I had posted something on Facebook a while back. I think it was on my friend's page. I can't remember, where I talked about that I was getting out my old mystical books that I used to write medicine for the earth with because I couldn't use a lot of the material in there. It was too far out for um, a modern population. And publishers kept telling me that over and over and over again. And so I said, I don't think I'm going to be on Facebook very much anymore, but I'll be here from time to time, especially when something important is coming up. And somebody commented that you're moving from horizontal living to vertical living. And that's exactly what's happening. And all of a sudden on Facebook, I'm still on Facebook because I have a couple of pages I can't leave at the moment. And I'm seeing this term, horizontal living versus vertical living, and horizontal growing versus vertical growing. I'm seeing this in so many different places. And I started the other day, I went into a really deep meditation, and I started thinking about there's a old Pomo elder, and I have to look up her name. I have the book, but it's the teaching that's important. It's not who she is, it's the teaching. And what she would teach is that when you don't eat the fruit from trees, they get very sad. That's their destiny in life, is to feed the nature beings, the other nature beings on the planet. We all have a destiny. We talk about this all the time, but do we ever talk about the destiny of nature? That nature has a destiny too. Like, Renee, you want to get your oracle cards out. That's your destiny. I want to do more earth centered work. That's my destiny. Trees want to feed people. That's their destiny. Birds like to sing. That's their destiny. Every being has a destiny here. It's not just humans. And so I started to think about, wow, eating the fruits of trees is a way of honoring the trees. And then I started thinking about 44 years of putting out fruits. I've loved it. I feel so honored that I've been able to inspire people, but when I go back and think about that Facebook post that I'm getting out all my old material to review, what I'm actually saying publicly is I need to go really deep into my inner world and start being fed from the earth by through my roots and being fed from the divine and sharing those energies with my body and with the planet in the collective. And so I'm wondering, especially, we wonder what Renee has to say about this, but I wonder what seeds are being planted in you of how much do you feed others and how much are you feeding yourself?
Mm. So much to unpack and think about in what you were just talking about. And I think for some it's a cycle. So whereas, you're wanting to go in, like I'm naturally going out right now. Like one for me, like one thing is ending, but the other thing is here to meet me as it ends, which, that doesn't seem like there's going to be even a big space, but I did a lot of vertical growing last year. The Quechua, they talk in their cosmology about that there's a horizontal axis and a vertical axis, and it's part of probably part of nature because all of their other things are that that certain Paco, certain people were only um, took care of the horizontal things, the
Mm.
crops and this and that, and the tending to the alpacas and going to the market and stuff. And then the people, the Altomasayocs, the other people would tend to the vertical axis. And so it doesn't really surprise me at all that the vertical axis is when you start, communicating with the stars and the rivers and that go and slipping through that portal to the other realms of your own communication. But I really believe in my own work that so within is so without, that this is not that's not an external activity, that going vertical is an internal activity that connects us to everything that is.
Exactly. And I just feel that um, as we're changing cycles, because as Renee, that's a perfect point that you brought up, is that everybody's in different cycles. And in our changing cycles, number one, it's really important to know that there are people who are doing the inner work and that there are people doing the outer work. And that brings a tremendous amount of balance to the planet. Um, and to really understand that the inner work does create change in the collective because it works on an energetic level, and we know that everything on this planet is merely energy. So
Hmm.
working on an energetic level, you're working with what this planet really is simply energy. And I think a lot of people start to feel guilty when they start to do that deep inner work because we live in a culture where it's, well, what are you doing? Are you retiring? We don't know where to put that. You I'm doing big work, but it's the inner work. And of course, in all the literature that I'm reviewing, and it is the medicine for the earth work, is that in and out are the same. It's all working with the inner and the outer, it's all the same. And so it's just reversing directions of whether it's a time of being active in the world or whether it's your time of being inner for
Hmm.
yourself in the world.
It's funny as you're talking. First I visualized a tree really collapsing itself to get through a harsh winter. And I don't know why winter was coming up, but then maybe because you were talking about snow, and then I saw a hibernating bear.
Mm.
Like, and the thought that came in is the bear any less alive when he's hibernating? Is the tree any less alive when it's, holding in to get those new buds for the other thing? And that transformation, or the metamorphosis that happens when we recognize that we recognize that this is just as valuable as, doing the other.
Yeah, and I think, it's not even that it's just as valuable, both are needed,
Yes.
to make a complete cycle, and so, we're really looking at I think what people are really looking at today because I keep reading about, I keep reading, number 1, that what all people wanna do is turn to nature to heal. I keep reading that over and over and over again, and that people are getting an amazing amount of healing from nature, but they have to learn how to be quiet in a way that they've never been before. And then there are people who are getting ready to bloom, and we can use the southern and the northern hemisphere as an example of that kind of balance of we're always in the opposite season. One of us is always dying and hibernating while the other one is blooming, and it's at a different time. Um, so when we're going into fall, the southern hemisphere is going into spring. So nature is always bringing that balance by having us work on different levels during different seasons. Uh,
Hmm. Yeah, and what I uncovered when I was working on the new oracle was I uncovered. So I always knew of the doldrums that were at the equator where there's no wind. But what I also discovered was that they're right at the same places on the equator. There's a creator wind, and then there's the wind that's in over the underworld.
mm,
So, like that's what you're talking about, is that duality, like the underworld and the upper world, and this mid horizontal line that goes between, where there could be a period of no wind, uh, to be in either of those spaces. But um, I don't know that that's totally related, but it just made me think about how in nature this is acceptable, and it's more like that we struggle with, am I take for example, we were talking earlier about emails.
mhm,
Like, if is it okay if I get a bunch of emails and I don't answer them?
right.
Absolutely. When all of a sudden were we put on guard that because somebody sent me a notice a few weeks ago that said, I prefer to talk personally. And I'm like, well, who are you?
Right,
Like, who are you that you should, just enter into my space and tell me that you wanted me to set up a 20-minute call with you
right,
with no. I mean, I'm sure you've seen it all your life, like people just expect, I need this healing.
right,
And with no regard for whatever is going on in your vertical access.
right. Yeah, yeah. I remember the night like it was yesterday, and it was years and years ago when somebody called me at midnight on New Year's Eve and asked me if I was willing to do a healing for somebody. I was so shocked. It was like, "Oh, I have no life. I have no right to take midnight off on New Year's Eve." It was really interesting to me, and so I think we all are at a place. One of the things that I'm seeing, and this is part of this topic of horizontal and vertical growing, is setting boundaries.
Mhm.
because there's pruning that's always needed no matter which way you're growing, whether you're growing up or sideways or horizontally, we have to prune. And part of it is pruning out what's hurting the being, what's hurting
Mhm.
what's taking too much fruit, not giving anything back to nurture,
The sucker on the grapefruit tree.
right? Yeah, yeah, and it's really important as people keep saying, "I'm really turning to nature to heal." It's more than just observing the beauty of nature. It's also looking at the cycles and how nature stays in balance.
Mhm.
I think, um, I think, as I said, this is a new topic that I'm thinking about for myself and where I am in my cycle. Renee and I are in two different places in our cycle, but so it's kind of new for me. But when we really think about it, it's where are you if you feel like you're connecting with nature? Are you also connecting with its cycles and understanding? The horizontal versus the vertical and how to feed from nature and then how to give back to nature and how to give to other people and how to receive from other people. And I love Renee the doldrums. I just love it. I can't say I love it. It's really amazing. And so there's so much that we can really look at right now just about bringing balance back into our lives again.
Yes, I think it's really an important time, and that means go through all the areas of my life. Like this morning, I get up like very early in the morning, and I have a little routine while I'm waking up, and I'm thinking like, do I really need to read all of these news reports? Like, am I less am I less okay if I don't know 10 things that happened out in the world yesterday? And I think I am. I really think that I am. That if I just cut that back and spend more time walking over along the mountain, I'm gonna be happier, more balanced, more center, and I'll have more to share.
Right. Yeah, and I think that for some people who are very sensitive and very empathetic, who I'm not saying this in a derogatory way. I'm saying it in a very kind and compassionate way, who haven't done a lot of work on understanding that we all have a destiny, that we came in here, whether it makes no sense or not, to have a life of abundance or be poor or be ill or be healthy. And so we get if we haven't done enough inner work, we start thinking that we have to save the entire world, and that's where a lot of people are at right now with the news is how many people can I save and how many different countries can I save? And you're one person. And so I think that reading the news is actually getting a lot of people into trouble because we're putting our attention out to a place where, like, somebody wrote me an interesting email and said that through her illness, that the suffering that she's experiencing is the most potent time of her whole entire life. And we have this negative thing about suffering. None of
Mhm.
us who wants to suffer. We don't want to suffer. We want to have fun. We want to feel good. But that's how in nature, that's how a lot of the growth happens and a lot of the lessons happen. So when we watch the news, sometimes our hearts get so blown open. It's like we want to be everywhere in the world at the same time. And then we're too distracted. We're not putting our energy focused in a particular direction. And so when we do our inner work, we can see the energy that builds up inside of ourselves that isn't distracted energy and that it has more force to create change.
Hmm. There will be no more horizontal scattering. And really, I mean, really, when you think about what is required for a seed to grow, like how much, you know, specialized, focused energy to know when to sprout at the when the time is right.
Yeah.
If you're scattered everywhere, you're gonna miss the daffodil. I'm onto daffodils right now. I have this small group. It's the Book Walkers Club, and we're going through a Pilgrim's Guide to Walking Wisdom 1 week at a time, and we've been sharing pictures of our wind walks
Mm,
on this private group, and there's not a lot of us, but it's really inspiring to learn that at the same time in a lot of places in the world, daffodils by many different names come up for a short week.
right.
Sandra and I have been talking about daffodils lately, and it's fascinating to me that this plant has such a focus that it's got a couple of week shelf life, and yet it must be important enough that it does it every single year.
Yeah, I know. And I always can't wait to see the daffodils coming up again. Being in the desert, every time a flower blooms, it's just such a treat. But it's really good to know that their life is short term because I'm not educated in that. And I always think I'm doing something wrong when the daffodils.
Uh, the life cycle of a daffodil. Uh, Yeah, I learned a new word from their narcissisms in Germany today. So I wonder if it has to do with the narcissistic kind of looking in the pool, but I'm not sure. So I'm going to make that up. Well, I think would like to hear back your feedback on this subject. Like, are you spreading out horizontally at this time, or are you really tending to your vertical axis? And what does that look like, and what does that mean for you? I mean, I think that would make a really potent conversation in the shaman's cave.
Absolutely. And I just want to end with a story because I think it's important to just bring this point in to end with too. It was probably 20, 30 years ago. Woods and I were watching a nature show on TV, and it was about different creatures. Everything on Earth depends on water to survive. But it was about how these little tiny different creatures would bury under the earth, sometimes for 100 years, waiting for water.
Mm,
Rain, they would come out and be fine. It was the most amazing story I've ever seen, that a being could actually hibernate that long and wait for the right conditions. And the second the right conditions are there, it bursts out of the earth and has a life. And so, as we've been talking, and as Renee talked about the horizontal versus the vertical, we also have to look at right timing,
mhm.
and that think when you're losing patience that you're not getting things fast enough. Think about all the creatures that who are waiting 20, 30, 40, 50, 60 years for the right conditions for them to grow again. So have patience. and and this is a beautiful topic to reflect on and to share your reflections, as Renee said, on the shaman's cave. So blessings, everyone.
Thank you.